While we live in a world of short attention spans, and ever-changing online games to cater for today's generation, there is one thing that just never gets boring. That is board games. I guarantee that each of you have played at least one of these incredible top-selling board games, some of which have sold millions of copies and been played by billions of people worldwide. Check out this list of the top 10 board games of all time. 10. Ticket to Ride. Ticket to Ride has won dozens of awards and sold over 6 million copies since its creation. It is the most popular modern board game, as it takes players on a train ride across the country, while they collect cards of various types of trains which allow them to own railway routes between different locations. The game is simple to learn, but requires great strategy and tactics to win. The longer the train routes each player claims means the more points they accumulate. There is also a selection of destination tickets which give players the opportunity to earn bonus points. To put it basically, each turn you draw more cards, claim a route or get a destination ticket. It's a high-quality, modern game that everyone in the family can enjoy. Better get tracking. 9. Dominion. Dominion is a newer board game, which has grown to fame in the last 10 years. Since its release, a huge number of expansion packs have been released, making the game bigger and bigger. The original game can be played by up to 4 players and focuses on deck building. It was the game that made the concept of deck building popular, as each card interacts with the others in special ways which could lead to you winning the game. Each player starts with an identical deck of cards. The center of the board has an assortment of other cards, which players can buy as they can afford them. To win requires strategy, regarding how each player plays the cards in their hands and how they choose to construct their deck using the cards up for grabs in the middle. Setup of the game gives you a few different options which keeps things exciting. Have fun getting your head around this one. 8. Cluedo. Cluedo is the #1 classic detective game, which requires the solving of a crime. There is one murder with 6 suspects. The aim of the game is to determine who the murderer is, what weapon they used and what room the crime was committed in. To do this you must make your way around a mansion into all the different rooms. Each player has been dealt an equal number of cards which have each suspect, weapon and room on them. Once you reach a room, you are to ask the player to your left if they have a particular character, weapon or room, and they must show you if they have one of the 3 cards you have asked for. In the case that they have none, the question goes to the next person to the left. Through process of elimination you can cross off each suspect, weapon and room and eventually make an attempt at solving the homicide. In the case that you are wrong, you are out of the game and play continues with the other players. This is definitely a game you want to keep your poker face on for. 7. Battleship. Battleship is a classic Hasbro game which requires some luck and some strategy. It is a naval-themed game which requires a player to sink all of their opponent's battleships before they get to yours. The game is played on a 10x10 grid and starts with players positioning a number of different shaped and sized ships on said grid. Your aim is to strategically place your battleships to make it harder for your opponent to discover your position. From there the excitement begins, where you and your opponent take it in turns guessing locations on the grid where you think each ship might be located. If you have a hit, your opponent yells out and you get another turn. Once a ship has been sunk, the catchphrase as advertised by Hasbro is "You sunk my battleship." The game carries on until one player has sunk all of their opponent's battleships. The game is simple, but fun, and there are endless ways to position your ships. Now there are countless versions of online battleship games which can be played all over the world. Happy firing. 6. Scrabble. Scrabble was a game invented by Alfred Mosher Butts during the 1930s, the time of America's Great Depression. Little did Butts know that his game would be a life-changer for many and would bring smiles to families who had little left to smile about. For years, He analyzed popular games such as chess, checkers and bingo and came to the conclusion that word games didn't reach the same popularity as other games because there was no score. Thus, Scrabble was born. The game is simple but requires a lot of thinking. Players start with 7 tiles, each with a letter and its corresponding points typed on front. After each turn, players take more tiles to replenish their hand. Each turn, the player forms a word using the tiles in their hand and the points are calculated based on what squares the word is placed on. The words, however, must be attached to the words that have already been played out. This adds an element of difficulty to the game. Once a player has played all their tiles, and there are no more remaining in the pool, or once there are no more words possible to be made, players calculate the sum of their scores. Players with tiles remaining deduct the sum of points from their hand from their total. Your winner has the greatest number of points. Legend has it that the point system for each letter, as generated by Butts, was formulated from the letter's likelihood to appear on the front page of the New York Times. 5. The Settlers of Catan. The Settlers of Catan puts players back in history to a time of voyages and discovery. Your ships have landed on the coast of uncharted territory and its name will be Catan. Therefore, as players, you are the Settlers of Catan. Although it isn't the most popular game in the world, it is certainly up there among the best. It is of course another game based on trade and economy. The aim of the game is to take over the island of Catan, although there are no fights or eliminations of other players. Instead, the players use the island's natural resources to build cities and trade goods with one another. At the end of the game there will be one person who has earned enough points to be deemed the dominator of Catan. While the goal is to have the most points by the end of the game, it is impossible to win without trading with your opponents and sometimes giving up valuable resources. This is where the strategy comes in. Pay attention to what you need, and what your opponents need, and form a strategy to ensure fair trading, and ultimately win. 4. Risk. Created in 1957 by Frenchman, Albert Lamaris, it was originally titled La Conquête du Monde, which translates to The Conquest of the World. Parker Brothers then brought the game to the US, and retitled it to a more appealing sounding Risk. The aim of the game, however, has always remained the same: to strategically eliminate your competitors and earn control of the board's entire territory. The game took off in the 1960s and was hugely popular among high school and university students around the globe. Its rise to fame was attributed to its challenging nature, which kept the minds of young students active and engaged. Although luck does play a little part in the outcome of the game, strategy is the ultimate key to conquering the board. Aside from Monopoly, Risk has been labeled as the best game for practicing and learning skills of negotiation and strategic interaction. Happy strategizing. 3. Monopoly. Monopoly is one of the most popular games in the world. I'm sure almost all of you have played it at least once or twice, or at the very least have heard of it. Since its creation in 1935, more than 250 million versions of the game have been purchased and played by more than 1 billion people. Being one of the most popular board games known to man, it was officially inducted into the National Toy Hall of Fame in 1998. For anyone who hasn't played, Monopoly is a real estate-based board game played by up to 8 players. The main aim of the game is to be financially stable while simultaneously forcing opponents into bankruptcy. Each player moves around the board purchasing properties and building hotels which opposing players must play to land on. As one player builds up their empire, the rest will slowly dwindle until there is only one player remaining with all the money. While chance can help you win or lose faster, it is essentially a game of strategy. The original game was set in London, however now, there are hundreds of versions of the game with many destination and movie themes. 2. Stratego. Stratego is a game where two opponents use pieces of opposing colors, typically red and blue. Each piece has a number rank on one side, which is played face down so they are unknown. When a piece is moved to an opponent's square, the pieces are flipped, revealing the numbers, and the piece with the smaller number is eliminated from the game. In the case that the pieces are of matching digits, both are removed from the game. The ultimate goal is to remove all of your opponent's pieces or force them to surrender. True to its title, this game is one that appeals to strategy enthusiasts and harkens back to World War II. Since it was released, more than 20 million copies have been purchased worldwide, with particular success in the US, Netherlands, Germany, and Belgium. Now, similarly to chess, there are national and world championships organized each year. As well as having new online versions released, there are a number of sci-fi themed versions of the game. Definitely one to give you a headache. 1. Chess. Chess is one of the oldest and most played board games in history. Played by two people on a checkered board of contrasting colors, standardly black and white, and corresponding pieces. The pieces consist of a king and queen, two bishops, knights, usually depicted as horses, and rooks, from the Persian word for a castle tower, and 8 pawns. Each piece moves in a different direction around the board, and the aim of the game is to corner the opponent's king. The game first appeared in India around the 6th century AD and quickly spread to Asia and Europe. It soon became known as a royal game due to its popularity amongst the royal family, and is still played exactly the same today as it was back then. It was during the 20th century that the game underwent massive growth, which led to nationwide competition and player sponsorships. With recent mass growth in technology, a number of apps have been created allowing people to play online, accommodating international games and competitions. I'm sure back when the game was founded it was never dreamed that it would become the phenomenon it is today.